begin with the only application that's before the board tonight, special meeting, ZB 2019-31 AUCC, Ray of Sunshine Foundation. The only application on the agenda tonight. We will hopefully go till no longer than 10, perhaps a few minutes after. And before we begin, I would like to recognize Mrs. Steinhagen, our attorney, who will bring us up to date on counsel for objectors.
All right, so yesterday the board received correspondence from Greg Asadorian, an associate at Price Meets Shulman DiArminio, which is representing the list of neighbors who have obtained counsel in connection with this appeal, or in connection with this application. They had filed several appeals of decisions of the zoning officer and were objecting to the hearing, or to the application rather. Mr. Asadorian advised that Price Meets would be withdrawing his counsel. Mr. Farrar, did you get a copy of that letter?
I did, yes.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who are here tonight who were previously represented by Ms. Price or Price Meets? Okay. I don't know if we need to call anybody up. Is there an intent to retain new counsel?
Not at this time.
Okay. So the residents have indicated that there is not an intent to retain new counsel. There are some appeals filed by the residents. I don't know where we're going to get tonight. I know we've been deferring the appeals filed by the objectors to their case in chief. I think that's a prudent course. We may want to defer it either to argument by one of the residents of the line retain counsel. Ms. Price did submit an appeal, and my recollection is that your office submitted legal brief indicating that it was out of time. I think that's the threshold issue that we need to address first before we move on to the substance of the appeal. We're not going to do it tonight. This is my recommendation to the board. You have a full house in terms of your witnesses, the board's professionals. So I think we should move on to that, and if you conclude, we can deal with the appeals filed by the residents at that time.
That would be perfectly fine.
All right, so just so the public understands now, sort of the ground rules of how this works. While the public was represented by, while members of the public were represented by counsel, they could know, they were not permitted to ask questions directly of any witnesses, and all witnesses needed to be channeled, all questions needed to be channeled to the counsel. That counsel is no longer at this meeting, so the public is now free to ask questions of any witness that has testified. There was a witness, the engineer had concluded or had testified at the last meeting with the intent of opening up his testimony to counsel. That witness, Mr. Carissa Burton, will be here later, hopefully, and his plans are not included in the developments today. So we will proceed now with Mr. Farrar representing his traffic engineer.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Sure.
It was both Mr. Burton and the applicant architect that were not questioned by Ms. Price. The members of the public who were previously represented by Ms. Price, let me back up. Both of those witnesses were asked questions by the public, not represented by Ms. Price.
Correct.
Those two witnesses were returned for cross-examination by Ms. Price when she was representing the neighbors. They are still subject to cross-examination by those neighbors, but only by those neighbors. It's not going to be open to the public. So anybody who was previously represented by Ms. Price would be allowed to ask questions. I have the list of Ms. Price's now former clients. Anybody who's on the list can ask questions, but if they weren't on the list, then they're not going to be permitted because they haven't transferred.
Thanks for that clarification. So again, Mr. Farrar presented his first witness, who is the traffic engineer. Upon the conclusion of his testimony, he will be open to questions from the public. Please proceed.
Before we do that, we have two representatives from Stonefield who would like to swear in.
Okay.
Just one? One up. Please put your name on the record.
For the record, my name is Jonathan Estrani, that's I-S-T-R-A-N-Y-I. I'm a principal with Stonefield Engineering and Design, located at 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey.
you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm any testimony you will give before this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Your principal of Stonefield, licensed in the
I'm
state of New Jersey,
yes, professional engineer, newly licensed in the state of New Jersey. My license is in good standing.
testified before land use boards,
Absolutely.
accepted as an expert.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, that's it. Oh, one more thing. In reviewing my notes for the hearing tonight, I realized we neglected to mark, or at least my notes indicate we neglected to mark the Phillips Price revised review letter from October 3rd.
Okay.
I want to mark that. The last thing I have is B16, so I'm going to mark it as B17 tonight. If my notes are wrong, then.
Okay. And then there was a February 3rd.
Correct. That one, there was February 3rd was marked B12.
Okay.
There was also a December 4th that was marked B9.
Okay, perfect.
But we're going to mark the one revised on the 3rd as B17.
Okay.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Frank Ferraro. I'm here on behalf of the applicant at AUCC. We're going to proceed where we left off on February 6th, calling our traffic engineer. If you remember at the time, there was some requests actually by the objector's attorney that we provide a parking analysis. So that has been submitted to the board since the last meeting. We've also submitted, you should have a new architectural plan in your package, which you'll see on the one side of the pool addition. We've removed all the windows that were subject to much discussion last time. So to increase the privacy and also noise buffering to the neighbors from the proposed pool. But that's basically new information in your packet, and we'd like to call Eric Hupp, who's our traffic engineer.
Please spell your name for the record, sir.
My name is Eric, E-R-I-C, Hope, H-O-U-G-H.
Mr. Hupp, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm any testimony you will give before this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And could you please review your background and qualifications for the board and public?
Yes, I graduated from Rutgers University in 2006 with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. I have been working at Burton Engineering for the last 13 years as a design engineer, primarily in traffic, and I am currently licensed in the state of New Jersey.
And have you testified before land use boards in the state of New Jersey previously?
I have, not in front of this bar, but other boards, including Emerson. I've also done Nutley, Western New York, North Bergen, and there.
Have you been accepted as an expert in traffic engineering by the municipality?
I have.
Is there a license or certification for traffic engineering?
Yes, there's a further one which I don't have it. but-
ATOE?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Recommend.
So ordered.
Thank you.
So I guess first order of business will mark in the exhibits that you have. You have I guess it is a site plan entitled Daycare and Community Center, which I'd like to mark in as A7. And this is not in the board's packet. This has a last revision date of 12/5/19, is that
Correct. Correct.
And this was either prepared by you or under your supervision?
It was.
Yeah, let's work on that a little bit.
If we don't have that, can you just turn this, switch it over? Not too much, I want the public to see it as well, but
Good?
We're good.
Mr. Carr, what's the date on that? I'm sorry.
Sure. It is December 5th, 2019. And also your office prepared the traffic impact study, which is dated September 19, 2019, and last revised November 8, 2019.
We did.
Okay, and is this a copy of that report?
It is.
I'd like to mark this as A8. And was this report either prepared by you or under your supervision?
It was.
Mr. Farrar, just for clarification, at the last meeting, we marked a set of engineering plans from Burton Engineering that had a last revision date of January 24, 2020. That one is 12/5. There were changes made, are they consistent, are the two plans consistent?
Yes, they are. That exhibit, it only demonstrates the drop-off traffic.
Would it reflect the most up-to-date site plan?
It does.
For that?
It's just a partial set, right? Just want to make it clear for the record.
This is just a single sheet, essentially, demonstrating the drop-off process and location. They won't have trouble seeing that.
No, I mean the January 24th.
I thought it was full site.
Yeah, it looks like a full set.
So that's essentially one sheet on the set.
This is an exhibit that it portrays the everything from that set, but I added some traffic control features.
And then finally, your office also prepared a parking evaluation report dated February 10, 2020, is that correct?
That's correct.
And is this a copy of that report?
Yes.
And was this prepared by you or under your supervision?
It was.
And mark this as A9. So, could you please share your, are you good?
A8,
Should be A9.
which is A8.
A8 is the traffic.
Oh,
impact
sorry.
study.
I was fine with it.
No, and A9 is the parking study. So could you please share your parking analysis of the proposed project?
We start with traffic.
Yeah. Traffic first.
Burton Engineering has performed a traffic impact study associated with the proposed development, which includes an inventory of the existing roads and traffic controls, traffic counts at both the Teaneck Road, Oakdene Avenue intersection and the Teaneck Road, Hillside Avenue intersection to determine the existing traffic in the area, an estimate of the traffic to be generated by the project, and an analysis of the impact this traffic will have on local traffic in the area. The property is located in between Oakdene Avenue and Hillside Avenue at the intersection with Morningside Terrace. Teaneck Road is located approximately 300 feet east of the site. Along the site frontage, Oakdene Avenue acts as a one-way roadway eastbound towards Teaneck Road, and Hillside Avenue acts as a one-way roadway westbound away from Teaneck Road. The site has approximately 375 feet of frontage along both Oakdene Avenue and Hillside Avenue with an existing access driveway on Hillside Avenue. A study of traffic activity was conducted at both the Teaneck Road, Oakdene Avenue intersection and the Teaneck Road, Hillside Avenue intersection during peak traffic conditions on September 10th, 2019 through September 12th, 2019. The majority of traffic travels southbound on Teaneck Road in the AM peak hour and northbound in the PM peak hour. The proposed site will have two access driveways, one two-way driveway along Hillside Avenue, located 347 feet from Morningside Terrace, and one two-way driveway along Oakdene Avenue, located a distance of 113 feet away from Morningside Terrace. Since Oakdene Avenue is a local roadway with a low traffic volume, I believe that the proposed site driveway is adequately located away from Morningside Terrace. The amount of traffic to be generated has been determined from data published in the Trip Generation 10th edition manual by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, ITE, using the Recreational Community Center land use. A total of 144 trips are anticipated in the AM peak hour, and a total of 180 trips are anticipated in the PM peak hour. This is not accounting for any carpooling or transit use in the area. The proposed site-generated traffic has been dispersed onto Oakdene Avenue and Hillside Avenue as per the existing traffic distribution and any anticipated movements. A capacity analysis has been performed to determine the operating conditions or level of service at both the Teaneck Road, Oakdene Avenue intersection and the Teaneck Road, Hillside Avenue intersection during both existing and proposed conditions. It was found that the existing condition of the Oakdene Avenue eastbound approach to Teaneck Road currently operates at a level of service F. This is because of the difficulty of making a left turn onto Teaneck Road. This is an existing condition, and it is anticipated the site will only add a total of 5 left turns onto Teaneck Road in the AM peak hour, and 11 left turns in the PM peak hour. This is because the site layout was specifically designed to allow motorists that desire to travel northbound to exit onto Hillside Avenue, and they can proceed to Queen Anne Road to the west. So that they're not forced to exit onto Oakdene Avenue and ultimately make that left onto Teaneck Road. The level of service remains unchanged at the Teaneck Road Hillside Avenue intersection. And a capacity analysis was also performed at both site driveways and will operate adequately upon completion of the proposed development. As far as site circulation, the proposed layout has a 24-foot wide center drive aisle, which is sufficient for two-way traffic. We did prepare, as in our site plan drawings, a vehicular circulation plan, and this demonstrates a fire truck accessing the site from both driveways. This plan has been reviewed by the fire department, and they are satisfied with the layout. The peak period of daycare drop-off will be from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. We have also prepared a daycare drop-off exhibit showing traffic control at this time frame, which is exhibit A7?
A7.
A7. Just to go through this exhibit, one possibility that we came up with traffic control for daycare drop-off is
Eric, could you just stand to the side of it?
Yeah.
Maybe.
the other side.
Yeah.
other side. In this exhibit, the center drive aisle is coned off in the middle to restrict northbound internal traffic towards Oakdene Avenue. This will allow drop-off traffic to enter from Oakdene Avenue, drop off their children in the drive aisle, and exit the site on Hillside Avenue. As shown on the exhibit, this will allow an on-site queue of approximately 6 vehicles. Employees will also be available to help facilitate the children drop-off process. This direction of circulation allows motorists to access the site from Oakdene and avoid traveling on Teaneck Road. We could switch the direction of the flow here, but that would force motorists to enter the site on Hillside Avenue, and therefore they have no choice but to utilize Teaneck Road. So this circulation, we came up with this circulation to avoid traffic or additional volume on Teaneck Road. They can access the site from Queen Anne Road and Oakdene Ave. So that's why we showed this specific drop-off traffic control.
How far is it from the property to Queen Anne Road?
Ooh, I would say it's 350 feet to Teaneck Road.
We're trying, but
Yeah.
the idea is to avoid Teaneck, putting people onto Teaneck Road, but that's how it is. So how far is it for northbound travelers to get to Queen Anne Road? What sort of streets are they navigating?
It's just the local streets they're navigating, just Oakdene Avenue, or if they exit and go to Queen Anne Road, they would just local Hillside Avenue. And I would say it's about a quarter mile, if that. To Queen Anne Road, probably less than that. So it's not that bad.
And the point of this circulation is to avoid the intersection of Oakdene and Teaneck where you have that level of service at currently.
That's correct.
So we don't want to force everybody to be backed up at that intersection waiting to make a left or right that is already difficult today.
Correct.
It's probably a little more than a quarter of a mile. It's approximately a half a mile from Teaneck Road to Queen Anne Road, and that's what it's done.
We'll take you to the ground for it.
I live on it.
Yeah.
And do those roads, just, I don't want to forget the question. So do those roads, I mean, that's a local neighborhood street, I imagine?
Yes, the
Two-way traffic,
The higher
parking
volume
lots
roads are Queen Anne and Teaneck, and in between is lower roads.
And those neighborhood roads, for lack of a term, those can handle this additional flow without?
Yes, those local roads from the count we did on Hillside and Oakdene, low volume local roads that can handle the additional flow.
Quick question. So this site was already operating previously as a school. Would this recirculation actually therefore improve the flow to what it used to be?
It would improve the flow. From this exhibit, doing it this way, people can exit the site on Hillside and avoid Teaneck Road completely. So it would improve. To proceed with site circulation, we do have a trash enclosure proposed at the southeast corner of the building addition near the Hillside Avenue site driveway. It is anticipated that trash collection will occur during off-peak hours when the parking spaces in front of the trash enclosures will be unoccupied, because currently there are 2 spaces in front of the trash enclosure. However, we could provide signage to restrict parking during these collection hours. At this point, I would like to discuss parking. There will be a total of 100 parking spaces provided for the site, including 57 spaces located on the south side of the building and 43 spaces located on the west side of the building. There will be 11 tandem parking spaces for employees located on the south side of the building.
That's included in the 100?
It is. The township ordinance requirement for a community center is 1 space for every 4 occupants in the largest place of assembly. Using the proposed pool as the largest place of assembly will require 118 spaces, accounting for the 470 people that can fit in the pool area. The applicant, however, has agreed to limit the pool addition occupancy to 150 people, which would reduce the required parking to 38 spaces. The parking breakdown also includes an additional parking requirement for the sanctuary room, fitness membership, and daycare. With the exception of the daycare and the swim team, all these uses will be for the same 300 anticipated members. There's also a zoning ordinance requirement for a recreational facility, which is 1 space for every 4 members, which would require 75 parking spaces, accounting for the 300 anticipated members. When including the 22 parking spaces required for the daycare center, a total of 97 parking spaces are required.
38 for the pool.
If we limit it to 150 per that ordinance.
75 for the community center.
Rec facility, the recreation facility.
Well, yeah, right, whatever. At the recreation facility, the 300 membership, 300 person membership, and 22 for the daycare.
See, the community center and the pool, that's all one facility with the 300 members, with the exception of when they have a swim team there. So I would say the more accurate parking would be using the amount of members for a recreation facility. And that would be 75, and the independent use of the daycare is 22, and that would be a total of 97 parks.
What's the capacity of the pool stands for a week? You know that?
I don't have that number.
Our architect
No, that's
testified to that last time.
160.
No, it was much less than that, actually. We were measuring how many people we could fit, 2 feet of space. And it was between 80 to 100. Our architect can come up and verify that.
My notes reflect that the bleachers have seating for between 80 to 100. The plan originally had 165 seats based on 2 feet per seat. They were going to check the length of the benches. They said they were 36 feet long.
Right.
I do have further testimony about an additional parking there that I did for specifically swimmers. That I'll get into later. As far as other references, according to the Institute of Transportation Engineers, ITA, Parking Generation 5th edition, the average peak period parking demand for a recreation community center is 2.07 vehicles per 1,000 gross square foot for a total of 93 parking spaces for the 44,780 gross square foot building. The community center by itself only occupies 29,287 gross square feet, which would require 61 parking spaces at its peak according to ITA. Site investigations of existing community centers in the area were performed at the Richard Rhoda Community Center, located at 250 Blue Mill Court in the township of Teaneck, here, and the YMCA facility located at 360 Main Avenue in the city of Hackensack on Tuesday, July 30th, 2019, and Wednesday, July 31st, 2019. The Richard Rhoda Community Center is a 50,964 square feet facility with 2 gymnasiums, a dance studio, and a variety of different size multi-purpose rooms, as well as the Sunshine Garden Learning Daycare Center. We counted the existing parking lot consisting of 110 parking spaces during peak community hours at 10 a.m. in the morning and 5 p.m. in the afternoon, and found a total of 106 parked vehicles in the a.m. and 36 parked vehicles in the p.m. We also recounted this facility this week on Tuesday, February 25th, 2020, and we found 72 parked vehicles in the AM and 34 parked vehicles in the PM. The auxiliary lot, which is located across Palisades Avenue, was also observed to have only 1 to 2 parked vehicles during these study time periods. The Hackensack YMCA, which is a 54,400 square foot facility that includes a daycare center and a swimming pool, which is for members only and does not hold swim meets. We counted the existing parking lot consisting of 79 spaces and found a total of 66 parked vehicles in the AM and 76 parked vehicles in the PM. It is planned to have swim meets at the proposed facility occurring approximately 7 days a year after school, typically November to February. To investigate the parking demand that a high school swim meet requires, an additional parking study was performed at the Whitehall YMCA, located at 691 Whitehall Avenue during 2 separate swim meets. The Whitehall YMCA is a much larger facility that contains gymnasiums, indoor basketball courts, 2 swimming pools, and a daycare center. The facility parking lot contains a total of 327 parking spaces located around the existing building. The first swim meet was on Thursday, February 6, 2020 at 8:30 p.m. It was observed that the opposing team was bused to the meet, and there was a total of 30 visitors observed at its peak. At the start of the swim meet, there was a total of 129 parked vehicles observed. The second swim meet,
Is it 129 or?
126.
Oh. And then when you said 30 visitors, is that 30 spectators?
Yes, 30 spectators viewing the swim meet. The second swim meet was on Friday, February 7th, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. Again, it was observed the opposing team was bused to the meet, and there was a total of 11 observed at its peak. At the start of the swim meet, there was a total of 136 parked vehicles observed.
And that's 11 spectators at that particular meet at 2:30.
Yeah, that was 2:30 during the day, so there were less visitors at that time.
And are the swim meets that are proposed 7 times a year, this facility, are they to be during the afternoon as well?
Yes, from my understanding, they'll be after school between the hours of 3 and 5. So from the observed amount of swim team members and visitors at the swim meet event, it can be estimated that approximately 35 to 45 parked vehicles were on site due to the swim meet, with the rest of observed parking from the other YMCA activities. The YMCA, Wyckoff YMCA is approximately 90,000 gross square feet and has a much larger membership than the proposed Teaneck facility. When accounting for the larger size of the study facility and the observed parking required at the study swim meets, it is my opinion that the 100 parking spaces at the proposed facility is an adequate amount of parking for when they have a swim meet. In conclusion, it has been anticipated that the different uses of the community center, such as the daycare facility and the swimming pool, will occur at different peak time periods, and that the majority of daycare students and swim team members will either be dropped off at the site or carpool. In my opinion, there is sufficient parking provided for the proposed community center when compared to these existing facilities in the area.
Do we have an idea of how many members the Hackensack YMCA has?
Yes, I was told that the Hackensack YMCA has 1,500 members compared to the 300 in the anticipated members of the proposed facility.
Okay, and how many parking spaces does that facility have?
That facility has 79 parking spaces.
And that facility is a larger community center than what's being proposed in this application?
It is.
How many square feet is it?
Approximately 50,000,
54,000.
54,400, I believe.
Because your report refers to the square footage of this was the building we're in right now, and then calls the Hackensack, and that's 50,964, and then it refers to it as a smaller facility.
It's a smaller facility than this facility.
Right, but if
The
this
Hackensack.
facility is 50,964, how does 54,000 become less than that, smaller?
See, at the time I wrote that, I didn't have the data, so I used an aerial to project it, and I thought it was smaller. Since then, we contacted and we got a better figure as far as square feet.
So Hackensack YMCA is slightly bigger than the Rhoda Center.
In the addendum to the application, there's an argument that the parking should be based on the maximum capacity of the community center, but the number reference is 470. Is the 300 number now a revised number?
So this goes back to really, part of our appeal, which is what is the parking requirement for this particular use that's being proposed at the building. And I want to speak for Mr. Melfi, but I understood Mr. Melfi's letter of denial to outline all the possible parking requirements that could apply to this particular property. Not necessarily, correct me if I'm wrong, not necessarily create what is the actual parking requirement. Basically give the board the information and let the board and the experts also give their opinions what the parking requirement should be. Right now, the latest letter of denial we have from the zoning office is that the maximum number you can possibly require for the site is 239 spaces. Now, that's 66, it's almost 66% greater parking number than what the Rhoda Center requires, and this is a much larger facility. So it's been our contention from the beginning that that number is not the appropriate parking requirement for this type of facility. And, I was actually.
But I guess my question is, shouldn't then, if the maximum is 300 people, right? Shouldn't then be based, shouldn't you be arguing that your maximum should be based on a 300 capacity as opposed to a 470?
Correct. There's a couple of ways that the code goes into calculating what the parking requirement is. For a community center, it requires one space for, I think it's every four people that can fit in the room of largest public assembly. Normally, you don't have a pool driving that number, because pursuant to the International Pool Code, which they base this on, that's almost 470 people that you can put shoulder to shoulder in the swimming pool and kiddie pool area. And that's what drove the parking requirement of 118. Then on top of that, there was testimony that we have membership. So they took the 300 members, and there's a code section that says you need 4 spaces, 1 space for every 4 members. That's 75 spaces. That got added on to the community center number. Then you had the child care component. That goes by how many employees you have. 22 employees were determined to be in child care. That got added onto the number. Then there's a sanctuary room, interfaith prayer room, that at the beginning, no one was quite sure how that was going to interrelate in the application. I think it's pretty clear now that it's an amenity of the community center. It's only open to the 300 members that are going to be members of the community center. But despite that fact, it was given its own parking requirement of 22 spaces. So you add up all these numbers, and what you have is this 237 space requirement that we feel is obviously excessive. It double counts the same people who are using the same building.
On the 22 required for the child care, I think the addendum also references NJSA 4055D-66.6. I think the argument is the 22 spaces are not applicable pursuant to that code section.
It's our position that having the parking requirement for a child care center is statutorily not permitted. Now, the ordinance in Teaneck reads differently. It doesn't require the parking based upon the square footage of the child care center. It actually requires it based upon the number of employees you're going to have in the child care center. So I think it was the township's position that since it's couched in that fashion, the 22 parking spaces could apply. It's our position that even though you're counting employees and that square footage, the goals and the purposes of that statute is not to provide a parking calculation for this type of child care.
I just have a follow-up question on this. I'm looking at 66.6. Is it your contention then in a building that was solely a child care facility, that there's no parking requirement?
That was solely, then you have a parking requirement. That's my understanding. The square footage of the building.
So there's no parking requirement for child care?
No, if it's a standalone facility, you would have parking requirement, but the law is pretty clear that if it's a shared facility, then there's no parking requirement.
What is your,
But, and the testimony you're hearing gets to this point. We make that legal argument, and we think the statute is clear on that. But we also think that the site plan we are now presenting accommodates the 22, parking requirements associated with the child care if the Teaneck ordinance was enforced.
from your knowledge of the applicant's use of facilities, what is the most parking spaces that would be used at any one time? I understand all these activities probably not going on at the same time. What's the likelihood that several of them are going on at the same time? What would be that maximum scenario for parking? And with that, perhaps a question for your engineer as well. Based upon the hours of operation, the likelihood that certain things are going on at certain times of the day, what is that maximum time?
The test, well, if I can just answer it this way, this is enough. The testimony was that the estimated maximum amount of people in that building at one particular time, would be 190.
190?
Yeah, using the community center, using the daycare center, if there was, assuming if there was a swim meet going on or a swim practice. So you're assuming that all those things are happening at one time.
That's
When
like-
our testimony is made that they're going to be staggered.
So that scenario is likely to be late afternoon probably, right?
Yes, I would say that would be late afternoon.
So in that event, in that scenario, in that combination of events, what would be the parking requirement of all three activities going on at the same time? Compounded.
For my investigation at the existing swim meet, I would say that would be maximum, when there's a swim meet in the PM, the daycare center isn't in full operation, there would be the facility with the membership in the gym, I would say would occur after work, when people get out of work, so that wouldn't be a full occupancy. I would say it would be around 80 to 85 vehicles.
And one thing, Mr. Chairman, that number that I gave you was 190, that's people in the building.
Okay.
A lot of those people, if they're kids on the swim team, a lot of them aren't driving.
No, but
And if there's a lot, and that includes, we can have up to 110 children in the building. Those 110 children are not driving themselves.
So it's your contention now that you have provided adequate parking for the worst, or the maximum traffic condition of the applicant's operation?
Correct.
And in the scenario where all parking is taken for a unique event, what is the capacity of on-street parking?
There is on-street parking available. There is a restriction from 8 a.m. to noon on the northbound side of Oakdene, and on the southbound side of Oakdene, there's a restriction until 4 p.m. for the majority of the roadway.
So you stipulated it would be a late afternoon, early evening maximum use. So assuming that those two restrictions have been lifted for time, what's the total maximum capacity of parking within a couple hundred feet?
Well, I didn't do that estimate, but from my observation and field studies, there was an abundance of on-street parking available.
Accommodate 25 cars, 50 cars, what would you do?
350 feet in that direction.
15.
15 cars on both sides. Okay, so 15. And then on the other side,
You have Hillside as well.
What are the restrictions?
same restrictions, 8 a.m. to noon on the southbound side, and 8 p.m. to noon on the northbound side on the closer half towards Teaneck, and in front of our site it's until 4 p.m. So similar restrictions on that side as Oakdene, and Morningside, there's also available parking. There were no restrictions on Morningside as well.
So again, what's that?
So what's the linear square footage of that? We can figure out what the parking availability would be roughly.
Roughly 15 on both sides, 15, 60.
You've got houses on Hillside Avenue on the south side and on the north side of Oakdene.
So there's the driveway.
So maybe we'll just count the north side of Hillside.
15 and then
So 15, 15, and then on the other side, on Morningside, I believe on both sides of the street, I would say, let's estimate 20 more there, so total 50 in the area, I would say.
So that would be
And-
similar in nature to the 47 spot auxiliary lot, if you will, that the Rota Center has across the street.
Correct, and I don't foresee the on-street being used, but worst case scenario, it is available.
Well, I'm talking about a dignitary, a politician comes to speak at the community center, and this place gets just jammed with the community. You've got about 150 spaces to accommodate cars, what you're saying.
Correct.
And something like that, Mr. Chairman, would most likely happen at 7 p.m., 8 p.m.,
Right, okay,
where the child care is basically closed.
got it.
When we,
I have some questions about the drop-off operation. Can you just briefly explain again how this drop-off operation is going to work?
Well, we're gonna, this is one,
Andrew, do you have this?
I do,
Sure.
but I would appreciate it if you pull the mic closer.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
this particular situation, we have the center drive aisle coned off, so there is no northbound internal traffic. So basically, the motorists will enter from Oakdene Avenue, drop off their children in the drive aisle where there will be employees waiting for the parents to hand off their children, and they will exit solely on the Hillside Avenue. And this southern parking lot will also be open, but we can provide do not enter signs so no one goes north down that aisle, and there will be no exiting onto Oakdene Avenue. Now, this is only through the peak hours of daycare drop-off, which is 8 a.m. to 9:30 p.m.
So the children get dropped off on the opposite side of the street as the building?
Correct, and that's why we're gonna provide employees there to help facilitate that. Now, this is only one option. We could open it up the other way. The reason we didn't do that, as I stated before, we didn't want to bring in more traffic from Teaneck Road, so that's why we did it this direction. But yes, they will be dropped off right now in the drive aisle, and then stop, go get your kid, walk them over to the employees who will walk them into the facility.
Well, the employees actually come out of the cars now.
Yeah, 'cause how old are the children that are going to be attending this daycare?
I believe they are pre-K.
Yeah, preschool.
I would assume a lot of them don't walk.
Well,
Pre-K is 2 to 5.
yeah. But there's going to be, it was testified to previously, there's going to be aides outside. They'll help the children out of the car. They'll walk them to the next person who may be stationed either by the handicap ramp or the front door. That person will take them inside.
And previously, we had these 3 parking spaces for drop-off, and there was concern about conflicts with cars backing up. Will there be potential backup queue onto Oakdene? So we came up with this to help solve that problem, basically. And I believe this does function more appropriately.
How do you handle the child in the front car who doesn't want to get out?
Just,
Yeah, no, I only ask because one of my kids refused to get out of the car sometimes, so, and I guess the concern is the first car doesn't move, where did the cars behind it go? And how much space do you have behind it? How many cars do you expect to arrive? There's a lot of questions, right? But the real question that is at the heart of this is, how frequently are cars arriving in the morning for drop-off, such that we're sure that the 6 spaces you have there are sufficient to avoid backing up a queue back out into Oakdene?
Or can they bypass?
Yeah.
we can move the cones over.
You can't have a bypass.
Okay, we could.
And that's why.
You could theoretically, but it's not good.
But safety was, yes. That's why we didn't show it. According to ITE, if we use daycare only, there is a trips in the AM, so that is approximately 38 cars entering in the peak hour. So, 38 cars in a peak hour, that's one every 2 minutes. I believe, and right now we have a storage of potentially 6 vehicles in
10
it.
minutes, it's enough.
Just for the public's knowledge,
Mhm.
what's peak hour for a daycare center?
Peak hour for a daycare center is 8 to 9 o'clock approximately.
The drop-off.
Drop.
But also to Stein Hager's point, when the children will leave the car, there are parking spots where the parent could drive into or walk their child inside, correct?
Yeah.
But the important testimony was, I think you're getting a car slightly more than once every 2 minutes, right? And you have
At the
6,
peak.
at the peak hour,
Yeah.
and you have 6 spots, so if it's 10 minutes. You're 6 cars in that length is expected over the course of 10 minutes.
Well, and the exhibit shows the 6 cars queuing are blocking the drive aisle, so you can't access the parking spaces except for the 3 that are
Right.
shown.
I do feel like that is an overestimate. That is for the peak hour, peak condition of the daycare center. We also have a shuttle for some students to arrive, so that would lower the intensity of the people coming in as well. And I do feel like it is spread out over more than an hour, and it's really depending on the parents' work schedule. I think it is more spread out than we realize as far as the daycare goes.
And some of the children are being bused to the site, correct?
Correct.
Just one bus, that's the way it was.
How many children are that one bus?
The testimony was maximum 40.
What happens to cars that enter on Hillside Avenue by mistake?
For the daycare drop-off,
Yeah, they're in the morning, you have it coned off, they enter off of Hillside Avenue, where do they go?
they can park and walk their children over, but they should be instructed the procedure for daycare by the facility. But in that case, they forget or they're not following orders, they can park in that southern parking lot and walk their children into the facility themselves.
And then,
So approximately, Mr. Brown, to answer your question, 40 is the max that would be bused. And currently, right now, is 40 bused. Small bus.
When we talk about daycare, are we using that interchangeably with the Board of Education
Pre-K.
arrangement?
Correct.
So it's not a separate daycare,
No.
it's the Board of Education's.
Correct. There'll be children from the Board of Education, and there'll be children who are not from the Board of Education. So it'll accommodate both.
Don't we still have, even though you have the road, the northbound drive aisle come off, don't you still have the bypass danger? That, because the kids have to cross the street, and you've got the cars now exiting the stacking lane, driving southbound, while the kids are crossing that same southbound lane to get to the school.
I would say they would get dropped off in this drive aisle, which is only wide enough for one car, and the parents can get them out of the car, walk them in front of their vehicles, when they would get handed off to.
Where are they entering? Where are they entering the crosswalk, the marked crosswalk that's there? Right?
Over here?
Right. So you've got, if that's where the parents are, or in the perfect world, maybe, is that where parents are crossing the street? You've got the cars that are stacked behind them, still driving southbound, right, to get out the Hillside Avenue exit. And then, no conflict there with you don't have that same bypass danger that you would have?
Nobody's going to be passing anyone because it's going to be pulling into one lane, correct?
That's correct. I don't.
Well, then how do the cars leave?
You have to wait. If there's a car in front of you, you wait for that car to pull over.
If you force them to, if when they come in, if you force them to this side of the road and cone this, because you can't get in here, then there's no danger of them crossing the road. And this is technically only going to be one-way traffic in the morning when you're doing the daycare, correct?
Correct, during those hours.
So you can force them to the other side of the road, because nobody's going to be on the other side of the road. They can cone this section, because there's only one-way traffic here when they drop off. So they can force them to the side, and then when they get to the end, they can still go out to where they have to
So
go.
instead of showing the cars on the left side of the drive
Right.
aisle, so not
Sir,
showing
vice-
the
They can cone this
Right.
and force the cars here. That way, you'll have no problem with them. There won't be any danger, of course, and nobody will be able to pass.
No, sure. I mean, anecdotally, this is
Right.
This is about the safest drop-off I've seen, dropping my kids off for years. I mean, usually, a lot of times you're dropping them off in the street, at the curb, this is gonna have its own dedicated lane, it's gonna be toned, it's gonna be manned with personnel, I mean,
We love our children.
believe me, we all do. And that's why I think everybody who's there is gonna be extra cautious here when they're talking about this.
In terms, previously it was discussed that there would be some, in the case of a special event, there would be some overflow parking potentially in the basketball court area. Could you just discuss that a little bit, describe how many spaces you would estimate for cars to be there? And then lastly, I just don't think I think we underestimate the power, the coaxing power of sugar products. So that also will help with the getting the kids out. Yeah.
If we were gonna use one of the courts as a surplus parking, one court could provide an additional 16 spaces approximately.
Okay.
And there's 2 courts there.
There are 2 courts there.
Is the basketball court going to have movable baskets then? It's not going to be in the pole and cement?
Oh, no, they'll be permanent basketball.
There's no fence around the basketball court?
There's a fence.
This 12-foot gate.
Yeah, it's another 12-foot gate, you can open and get access.
Try not to have a pole, I guess.
I have a question. About
Real
the-
last resort.
Yeah. About the stacked parking, what kind of controls are going to be in place? Because I see they're designated as employee spaces, but people coming to the site, there may be some confusion, because if they don't know that they can block those employees in, and, you know, they don't want to show up, and then you're that person that's going to be the one to block somebody? Or if you get there, are you going to know, do I pull all the way through? Do I stay back here?
We can provide additional striping so they're clear, and then the facility can assign the spaces in pairs of employees, so they can coordinate amongst themselves.
Probably going to have to do that.
Yeah.
Something has to be done. It's just going to
Well,
create.
you would
Well,
have,
that's the plan.
you would have adequate signage.
So, but all tandem spaces will only be occupied by teachers, but what about during the weekend?
Correct. Well, the plan was to have striping there, signage, employee parking only. Because we don't want anyone parking behind the other who's not an employee. We don't want that to happen. Anyway.
What, you don't want, so you don't want somebody using the community center to park behind an employee?
Correct. Yeah. So what the goal and the plan was to assign those spaces to community center staff. They'll know who has the space in front of them, who has the space in the back, or if they have the job.
Junior employees would get the front space.
Potential of, what, a dozen park spaces?
Well, it's 11.
So when's up back on the 22?
That's 11 people to get a lot of that.
All right. Any further questions from members of the board? Any questions? You have?
Just one last question, if I may. So, just getting back to the point that was brought up regarding the parking requirement, do you believe that this site requires 237 parking spaces to function?
I don't. I agree with your assessment that it wasn't the intention of the ordinance requirement for the largest place of assembly to be a swimming pool of that nature. So I agree that 237 is an overestimation.
And in your professional opinion, do you believe that the requirement applicable to recreation facilities would be more applicable to this application?
I believe it applies.
Is that due to the membership number and limit that we have on the application?
Correct.
So is it your professional opinion that the site plan can accommodate all the uses that are being proposed adequately?
It is.
I have a question. Sure.
Just about the members you think will be coming and the kids. Are any of them coming from the surrounding neighborhoods? Do you think people will be walking in to use the community center and the daycare?
Olive?
Yes, for conservative analysis, we didn't use that in our report, but as far as IT has a 5% discount reduction in trip generation in this type of area that's close to, there's a bus route on Teaneck Road. This reduction wasn't taken, so my report is conservative in that nature. Yes.
But we anticipate
But I
people
did-
to be using mass transportation to get to the site?
I would say some, yes.
And there is a bike rack on the property, so essentially kids could ride their bike there.
There is.
Mr. Shine, do you have any questions?
I just have a few questions. I know we've discussed this queuing exhibit at length. I just want to confirm, will there be any other operations for the community facility during this pickup drop-off time? Like other members showing up or employees that, you know, basically would have to take the other driveway now instead of taking
At the time of the peak daycare, you're saying?
Yes.
It would be a minimum at that time.
Okay, I know the board expressed some of these questions as well, and I think you mentioned it during your testimony, but have you done any sort of shared parking analysis just with these overlapping uses between the daycare, the community facility, the swim meet? I know you anecdotally said that there would be a peak and the maximum share would occur during the afternoon, probably after school. But was there any traffic data or calculations used to back that up?
We didn't use a shared traffic analysis. We just estimated the peak time, which would be, as I said earlier, late afternoon.
And the peak times were testified to previously by the applicant.
Understood. Regarding the parking studies that you did at the other community facilities, I know they're slightly larger than the ones that you, than the one being proposed here today. The initial studies that you presented showed those lots being about 96% full. I know you went out there, you testified this week for the one site, the Teaneck Community Center, and that parking and peak demand drops by about 25%. Did you also recount the Hackensack site?
We didn't recount the Hackensack site. I recounted this site because I wanted to know if there was a difference between the summertime counts we did and current counts.
Okay.
So I only counted the Richard Rhoda facility.
Understanding, I guess, like the seasonal effect, would you anticipate that those facilities are, you know, depending on the season, underparked? Because the count that you did showed the lot being full when you presented those data points.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so understanding that those facilities are a little bit larger, do you still believe that the underparking spaces you're proposing is adequate for this facility?
I did.
Okay. And then regarding the multimodal transportation options, I know you mentioned mass transit, people walking from the neighborhood. Would the applicant have any objection to providing pedestrian access from Hillside? I know there's a sidewalk from Oakdene, but there's no sidewalk pedestrian access from Hillside currently.
Yeah, we can look into it. I would say pedestrians right now from Hillside would just walk in and on the right side of the parking lot and access the sidewalk near the traffic light.
Understood. Is there, you know, we could probably sneak a sidewalk, maybe an extra crosswalk through the parking lot there at the driveway entrance, that way pedestrians don't have to walk.
Okay, we can
do that.
I think we can do that.
And then I want to confirm, I know you mentioned previously that 3 parking spaces right off of the Oakdene Avenue driveway closest to the pre-K child care center were previously drop-off spaces. Those are no longer proposed as drop-off spaces on there.
That is correct. If we use this drop-off traffic control, yes.
During times, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would there be any objection to limiting those parking spaces to employees? Just because some of them, particularly the one closest to Oakdene Avenue, when you back out of that space, you're you know, more or less off the property into the driveway at that point.
We can certainly utilize those as employee parking. There's no objection.
And then regarding the swim meet, understanding that it's only a handful of times a year, the visiting team will bus in the team, and I don't know if they bus in you know, students or supporters as well. What would the operations be? Because that would be a very finite peak demand. Like, are the buses parking in the lot? Are they parking elsewhere after they drop off students?
Yeah, I can say that the visiting bus can park in the provided loading zone, which is located in the northwest corner of the building, and he can either stay there during the swim meet and wait for the kids, or he could go off-site and park somewhere else and wait and come back.
And the testimony previously was that we would have no objection to requiring a bus to leave the site rather than stay there. Could the bus also park in the rear of the building, as there's an access door in the back to the swim, to the pool?
You're saying park in this lot?
Correct.
It would occupy some existing parking spaces, but the study that the swim meet I investigated in the Wyckoff YMCA, that's what they did. They occupied parking spots in the rear of the facility.
Okay. But in this case, if they were to just drop off high school students, how long do you think that would take?
Well, another 5 minutes to drop it off.
And then the bus could potentially leave the site.
Correct.
And then just one last question regarding the level of service at Teaneck Road for Oakdene Avenue. Understanding that the level of service does not change, it remains as an F. The timing does increase there. Would you believe that some of the operations that you're proposing between the student drop-off and the additional driveway access point is going to help maintain or keep that access level the same?
Yeah, we specifically, at first we only had an exit-only driveway on Oakdene Avenue, and we specifically redesigned the site on there and to help facilitate all the motorists away from that level of service F on Teaneck Road. So I believe this design does limit the amount of cars at that approach.
And then this is just for the board's reference. The applicant's engineer did mention the fourth addition for parking generation in the report. Just now he referenced that there is new data out there, the fifth generation, that proves that there's a lower parking demand for a community facility, and that based on the traffic studies that they do, those community centers do include a student, like a pre-K or child care component built into that demand. So as stated, with the mix of the athletics and the child care, that peak demand at 93 for a facility of this size is adequate for this.
I actually had a question about that. What was the IT code? Can you repeat the number? Based
495.
495, was it 2.17?
2.07.
2.07.
For the fifth edition.
Okay. Thank you.
With that exhibit, it shows the queuing. Is that for drop-off and pickup, or pickup?
This is just for
drop-off.
Drop-off, right.
People will park.
Picked up, yeah.
I do have a question. We had some testimony at the last meeting about bus drop-off. We testified, I think the testimony was there would be up to 40 kids on a small school bus. That means the bus is going to be making multiple trips to the site. Is that correct?
The rest of the students would be dropped off by their parents.
No, I'm talking about the Teaneck Board of Education bus that's bringing children to the daycare. It's not going to be it's not going to be a big bus, it's a short, small bus.
Correct.
So to bring 40 kids, it needs to come multiple times. Is that fair?
That's fair to say. If there's that many.
If there's that many.
I understand. But, and the bus is going to drop off in the loading area or in that 3-space parking?
They can drop off in the loading area, and then when they need to leave, the aides they can just remove a cone, pull traffic, and while the bus departs from Sunset Avenue.
Okay, I'm going to open this now to members of the public. If you have any questions, please approach the mic.